Welcome to the After This podcast. This is the very first podcast. My name is Heather, and this is the first time I've done anything like this. So you're going to be learning and growing with me because I really don't know what I'm doing. You probably are asking, after what? That's what my kids said. After what? Well, after this moments are moments in our lives where the Holy Spirit comes in and breaks through, and our lives are completely different than they were before. I would like to share with you about things that God has done in my life that have completely transformed me and that have set me out on a totally different mission than I even thought I would ever be on. And so I'm going to tell you about my story. I'm not going into great detail, but if you would like great detail, my book, The Restoration of the Lost Years, can be purchased on Amazon, either in ebook or in a paperback format. And you can read more about the stories. And I'm going to leave some of the stories out. But I really want to highlight what God is doing in my life because I'm in and after this season. And those things can happen over and over and over in your life where this is how my life was before. And then God comes in and then you're living in and after this moment. So the first thing I want to tell you about is what I have lived through over the past, it's been over a decade now. And I'm not telling you to glorify the sickness or glorify what the enemy had tried to bring against my life, but I'm telling you how bad it was so that you can see the dramatic shift that God caused in my life. Because if you don't know how bad the before was, you only see the after this moments. And you think, wow, that person hasn't they have it all together and they must not have gone through anything difficult. But I can tell you, there has been a lot of difficulty that I have gone through in my life. Over the years from the time I was 22 until 2011, I started getting migraines once a month, and they would take me out for a month or for a week, for a day, just for an entire day. And then my life would be normal the rest of the month. So I'd have 29, 30 days where I was completely fine and one day where I was completely knocked out. And eventually I found medication that worked for that. I would take Imitrex and I would be fine after 2 hours. And so for many, many years, I functioned with one migraine a day each month, and it really didn't affect my life. By 2011, I had had 170 something migraine days. So that was a significant amount of time that I was in bed, sick, nauseous, in so much pain. And I had 2 small children that I was taking care of. It was really hard to try to function through that much pain. And so I was working for the state. I was an accountant. It was a wonderful, easy job, but even just driving there was too difficult for me. I did quit my job at the beginning of 2012 and stayed home with my son, who was then 3.5, which was actually even harder than working because he was 3.5 and had all this energy. And in 2012, I ended up having 311 migraine days or something like that. It just skyrocketed and got so much worse. And it was so difficult to function. Like, I'm going to tell you how it was to make a frozen pizza for my children. I would stand up and go and turn the oven on, and I would have to go lay back down because that was too much. And then I would wait till the oven heated up. I would go put the pizza in the oven and put the timer on. I would have to go lay back down because that was also too much. Like, standing made my pain so much worse. Or if I was nauseous, it made that a lot worse. And then when it would go off, I would stand up and take it out, go lay back down. And then when it had cooled, I would cut it, put it on a plate, and give it to my son and go lay back down. I rarely was able to eat a meal. I would have to wait until I'd taken enough Zofran to be able to even eat anything like bread. It was really bad. And I spent a lot of time on the bathroom floor because I was so sick to my stomach. And even despite medication, I was not able to eat. And just laying there for hours, sometimes days, I would have my kids come in and read to me, or When I was able to, I would lay down on the floor in the living room or lay on the couch and watch them play, watch movies with them. It was really hard to function at all. And I basically was not living a life. There was really not a whole lot that I could do because I was so incapacitated by the pain, by, by feeling nauseous and not being able to eat. I didn't have a lot of energy. And so I really raised my kids from the floor or the bathroom floor. They would just come in or be near me, and there wasn't much I could do. I couldn't really take them to the park. Occasionally, I would have days where it was as low as a 6, and I could go, grab them and go to the park. But most of the time, that wasn't the case. It was usually 8s and 9s, and those didn't break. It was really, really difficult to live that way and to try to function. So at the end of 2012, my neurologist told me that there's a brand new surgery. It's called migraine nerve decompression surgery. And they go in and they cut open right here, and they cut your trigeminal nerves, and then they cut open your eyelids, and they take fat from your stomach. Well, for me, they had to take from my stomach because that was the only place they could find enough fat. And then they put it in right here. And then they also do something to your nose, the septoplasty, where they try to make your septum correct or something. I'm not real sure what they did. But what that did, I went ahead and had that surgery. It was a new investigational surgery, and I was actually the very first patient for this plastic surgeon. And cutting those nerves were supposed to cause the pain to not be felt, like it was supposed to cause numbness. And it did. It did for a few months. During this time, during the numbness, all of the surgery healing was very painful. So yeah, I didn't have as many migraines, but I had so much pain from the surgery. From the first day, there was blood running down my face because of the way they cut my eyelids, or my nose. I couldn't lean forward, or just blood would gush out of my nose. It was insane. It took a lot of time to heal from that. I was exhausted. I could barely function. And so we're like, well, this is fine because then it's going to be numb. And once I recover from surgery, I'm going to be great. And that wasn't the case, because as I healed, first I got this intense itching all over my head where I would take Benadryl, and that was the only thing that kind of calmed it. But it was this healing itching, and it was deep inside my brain. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? And the nerves were regenerating. And the bad thing is that they regenerated wrong. So they grew back in a bad way. They grew back angry. And so this pain that I had always had just right here, now it was from here all the way around. And every side of my head, my face, all of my teeth, my nose, my eyes, my forehead, everything would hurt. And I developed atypical trigeminal neuralgia because of the way my nerves grew back. So on top of frequent migraines, which were now all over my head nonstop, I also had trigeminal neuralgia that would kind of flare, and it would lessen and flare and lessen and flare and lessen. It was awful. And it made me have symptoms I didn't have before. I was no longer barely able to drive because I would get really dizzy. And it was like all the sensory input would overload my eyes, and I couldn't look around to watch the traffic around me the way the surgery affected my eyes. Whatever happened up here, that really limited my ability to do much of anything, because what can you do if you can't drive usually? And I never knew when it was going to be bad or when it was just going to be more annoying. And the dizziness was not something I regularly experienced before the surgery either. That completely shifted my life. It changed everything because now the migraines were nonstop. And occasionally I still did get 6s, so I would try to do fun things, which included walking around Walmart across the street from our subdivision. That was like an outing for me. That was terrible if you think about, this is the fun thing that you're doing, right? But it was like, I'm out of the house, I'm off the floor, I'm at Walmart walking around, I can buy new washcloths or whatever it is that we were needing, or be able to take the kids to a park in the subdivision. But I couldn't go far in case the pain spiked unexpectedly. I had to always be safe. And this was my life from 2013 all the way to 2019. Years I spent on the floor, in bed, on the couch, laying on my son's bed so he could run cars all over me and play. That was how I lived my life. And it was awful. And I clung to God during that time. I prayed a lot. I did a lot of interceding for people because I still knew that God loved me. But I did not believe that he wanted to heal me because I wasn't healed. I asked him for healing, but I wasn't healed. I wasn't getting healed. After 6 years, you're kind of like, well, it must not be his will to heal me because I'm still here on the floor. And then something shifted and radically changed my life when somebody who I didn't know back then, but is now my friend, Josh, he came to my church and he did a healing service and he prayed and he commanded things to leave people's bodies, and it did. People were actually healed. And this wasn't something that my church regularly went after, but they did for this special healing service. It was like a healing and miracle service at the end of a fast that we did, like a 21-day fast, and then we had this healing and miracle service. And I believe it was around 200 people who got healed out of 800 in the room. It was massive. And I wasn't even able to be there because my church was 30 minutes away, and going across the street to Walmart was too much. So I tried to watch it online, but the pain was too bad and I couldn't handle the sensory input. That, I believe it was a Wednesday. Well, then by Sunday, I was feeling a little bit better. So I went back and watched it and I just wept and wept and wept. I'm like, I have to be there. He has to pray for me. And it all started when Josh had prayed for my friend Micah over the phone, and my friend Micah was radically healed in that instant, just receiving prayer over the phone. And I'm like, I know Micah. It's real. Micah is not lying about it. It's real. He's healed. And I saw him playing guitar on stage. And I was like, I need this guy to pray for me. So I messaged Josh saying, can you pray for me? I'm Micah's friend. And he messaged me back and said, I will. I'm a little inundated right now, but I will pray for you in the future. So I had a lot of hope, but I also texted my friend Micah and said, hey, would you pray for me? I know you were healed. And I had a reference for, if you've been healed, you should be praying for other people to be healed. So Micah is like, yes, I will pray for you. And I had been taking this injection for migraines that had caused such bad reflux that they thought I was having a heart attack. And they took me by ambulance, did all these tests, and found out it was not a cardiac event. I then had to get scoped and found out that my stomach looked like it was sunburned from this medication that I was taking. Only the medication helped the migraines a little bit. So I felt like I couldn't go off of this as an injection. And when they did the scope, they said, you can't take Advil because Advil's too hard on your stomach. And I was like, what am I supposed to do with the 9s? What am I supposed to do when my pain is a 9? Because that helps a little bit. I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was at least a month that I could not drink water without severe heartburn. And so I would just lay in a ball in bed. Not only did my head hurt, but now my stomach hurt so bad. I was terrified of even drinking water because triggering that feeling of intense pain in my esophagus and in my abdomen. Well, Micah called me in February and we talked for a little while. We had been on a worship team way back in 2003, 2004. And so we hadn't caught up since then. Well, he began to pray. We talked for about 2 hours. We prayed for 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, it felt like Pepto-Bismol was going down my throat, down my esophagus and my stomach. I'm like, Micah, It feels like Pepto is going down through my throat and everywhere. And for the first time when we hung up, I was hungry. And I was like, I need to eat. I really, really need to eat. And I just ran downstairs. I grabbed M&Ms and started shoveling them in my mouth while I was fixing a meal because I felt better. And from that day forward, that pain was gone. I stayed on the medication. I'm still on the medication, but that esophageal spasms or whatever that was causing that intense pain was gone. That made me able to take the Advil when I needed it or whatever it was that I needed. I mean, that was so powerful. Then I found out, well, Josh is coming back to my church in March. So that was 2 months later, or a month after Micah prayed for me. And I thought, I don't know what to do because I can't get 30 minutes down the road. Like, that's too hard. It is too far. I get motion sickness and the migraine. What am I going to do? And I just prayed. I'm like, God, I need to get there. I need Josh to pray for me. And about a week before the event was supposed to happen, my small group leader called me and said, hey, I have a secret for you to keep. I'm like, what is that? She said, Josh is coming to our small group. I'm like, what? Which was only a mile from my house. It was at their house. And so Josh and his team came to my small group. I was able to go there. I was in terrible shape. I had pajamas on and sunglasses on. And I thought, I'm going. If I have to lay on the floor next to their bathroom, I'm going and I'm going to get prayed for. And they prayed for me that night. And I think they must have prayed about an hour. I'm not sure how long they prayed. But my 8s and 9s went down to a 0 for the first time, completely gone. The migraine, the trigeminal neuralgia was still there, but the migraine was gone. And I was like, what? And over the next few days and weeks, it would shoot up to an 8, but I would have periods of 0s. I would have periods of time where I didn't have a migraine, which was completely foreign to my way of life at that point. And my kids are like, you need to tell us when you're at a 0. I said, all right. And so whenever I was a 0, I would tell them and we would celebrate really loudly. And we even went to Disney World and we celebrated the 0s. And I had a couple of days where I was able to walk around Disney World in very low pain, sometimes maybe a 0, but maybe a 2 or 3. It was phenomenal. It was amazing. That really changed the course of my life. That was an after this moment for me. That alone, even though I wasn't healed, I had had a measure of healing that allowed me to get off the floor at times. And from that moment on, I have not spent a single night on the bathroom floor due to the severity of the migraine nausea. Prior, we even had an air mattress that we would put in the bathroom, and I would lay on the mattress because I was so sick and it was so uncomfortable to lay on the floor for 24 hours. So I would be on that mattress for 24 hours. I don't even know where that mattress is because since 2019, I have not slept on the bathroom floor from migraines. I have had 8s and 9s. I've had a large number of 8s and 9s, but they break. Before I would even, if I dreamed at all, I would dream pain because I was in so much pain. The pain would come in during the dream and I would dream that I was living in pain. But I now was able, they would break with the medicine. And so I was able to, by the time I went to sleep, maybe I was down to a 5 or 6. And I know that that's not complete healing, but you ask somebody who goes from an 8 or a 9 to a 5 or 6, it matters. It matters so much in the severity and in the functionality. And I still had a really difficult time getting to church, but that was the one thing that I purposed to do every single week if I could. And it was a 30-minute drive. So I would drive there, go to the service, and then I would go stay overnight at a friend's house who lived nearby. And then I would come home the next day because that 30-minute trip was a lot for me, even after that measure of healing that I received. And the driving was not as difficult. Some of those things had gotten better, like the ability to look with my eyes and track, that had gotten better. Well, that was a huge change for me. Something that happened right after the healing service in March is I was driving home over the bridge the very next day, and I heard the Lord speak to me, and he said, "You will lay hands on the sick and they will recover." And I'm like, "Not me. No, I don't like to pray out loud. I don't like people to hear my voice." And again, I heard, "You will lay hands on the sick and they will recover." And I was like, "No, not me." And I'm like, that must be for somebody else, even though I'm the only one in this van. That has to be for somebody else. Again, I heard, "You will lay hands on the sick and they will recover." And so I said, "Okay, God, if you want me to lay hands on the sick and pray for them, I will. But I don't really know what's happening in my body yet to know, am I able to stand up? Am I able to be off the floor? If you will enable me to stand up, I will pray for people, but I have to be able to stand up." And so I obediently began praying for people. I joined the prayer team at church, terrified because I still didn't want to pray in front of people. And our church is huge. It seats 2,500 people, and we have several services. It's not just a small church. That was so overwhelming to me. But I did it in obedience, because how could I not enable somebody else to experience even the break that I had experienced, even that small amount of healing where I had lower pain? I wanted that for other people. I really wanted to see people healed. And I didn't really know, will God heal through me, except that he told me he would. And I began praying for people. And maybe a couple of people got healed. I wouldn't say that a lot of people got healed in 2019, but I was praying for people in obedience, in complete trepidation, but also in obedience to God. So I knew I was doing what he wanted me to do. And it was really taking a lot out of me, because there was still marked pain. And sometimes I was at a 9 praying for people at the church, and there's loud music. The worship music is really loud in our church. And that was even more triggering. But it brought me so much joy to know that I was doing what God told me to do, and that I was praying for people. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to say. I just knew I was going to lay hands on them and command the pain to leave their body, or command the sickness to leave their body, or just pray comfort over them if it was something emotional. And I did that for months and months and months in 2019, and I loved it. It was the most amazing thing. Even though it took me stepping way out of my comfort zone. And there was a time I was driving to church, and I felt like the Lord said, "Go to the outlets." And I'm like, "I don't want to go to the outlets. I want to go to church." I heard, "Go to the outlets." And I'm like, "God, I hate shopping. I really don't want to go." And I said, "But I'll go. Where do I go?" So I am one who will obey God, but I'm questioning these things. Like, am I really hearing from God? Wouldn't he want me at church, not shopping at the outlets? So I pulled over, and I thought, well, I'll just go park in a random area. So as I pulled into near the Gap, there's this woman standing in the middle of the parking lot using a walker, and she's just standing there. And so I parked and I got out, and I'm like, "Do you need help?" And she said, "Yes, I can't get to my car." So I helped her. I said, "Well, God stopped me from going to church and sent me to you." And I asked her what was wrong, and she told me, and she almost died from sepsis. And actually, she had attended my church years prior. And so as soon as I helped her get the walker in the car, I helped get her into the car. I said, "Can I pray for you?" And she's like, "Yes." And she loved and welcomed the prayer. And I I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not real sure what that was about," because I didn't know to ask if she was better, or to see if her pain went down, or if any of her symptoms subsided. I just knew I was on a mission to go pray for her and help her get into her car. So I finished my drive to church, went to church, and attended the service a little bit late. But several things happened like that. And it was really, really hard for me to step outside of my box to go and do what God was saying for me to do. But a lot of times, as I've learned, faith involves risk. I would say that before, I was in so much pain that there really wasn't, I had no friends. I could not attend church. I could barely play with my kids. Really, I didn't have a whole lot that I could do. I would sit in bed and crochet for hours because that's about all I could do. After this healing revival that came to my church in 2019, God really set me on fire to go pray for the sick. It's something I would never have considered before that. But after this, that was a marking moment in my life and a moment where God changed my life and He shifted my purpose, because my purpose became, I'm going to go pray for as many people as I can, even though I'm scared. That was such a huge after this moment in my life. So I'm going to be sharing some more things about what God has done in my life. I now travel all over the United States, and I go to other nations and I pray for the sick, and I'm not scared anymore. And I'm kind of going to take you along this journey of how that happened in my life. What did God do at each juncture? What were the after this moments that He used to bring transformation, not only in my life, but in the lives of so many people, because He sent me out. And even though I'm not completely healed, He still sends me to go do the things that He calls me to do. And He enables me to do it. He enables me to stand. He fulfilled His end of that. And because I'm able to stand, I'm able to go pray for people. So I'm going to continue to share some little things here and there. I'm not sure how long the episodes will be or how often I will post them, but I can't wait to share more about after this, what God is doing and what He can do in your life in the after this seasons.